Mr. Clerk, the time is 7 p.m. on September 8, 2015. I'd like to call the general committee meeting to order. First of all, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. We never start on time.
Never start on time? I'm not accepting that point of order. It's not valid. Thank you, though. I just killed your mic, by the way. So. Okay, so seeing none, next, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Mayor Daw, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor?
Questions, comments?
Oh, sorry, questions and comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. Next, we have a determination of items requiring separate discussion. I'll start to my right. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second, I had item 17, which requires decision. Direction.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner.
3 for 15, 17, 18.
17 is already.
Oh, sorry, 3 for 15 and 18.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Item 1 and item 6.
Thank you. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 9.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might have been pulled.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp.
Items 2, please.
Thank you. Councillor Perry. Thank you. Okay, so now may I have a motion to adopt the item? Oh, sorry. Yep. Okay, so I'll confirm that 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 15, 17, and 18. Councillor Thompson?
Can I get item 8, please?
Item 8. So here I'll go one more time. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 15, 17, and 18. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Could you add 12?
You guys are making me make my evening fun, aren't you? So we'll do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, 15, 17, and 18. And since you we got yours? Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to, if I can get a motion to adopt the items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Tom. Any comments or questions? No? So then, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We don't have any delegations tonight. Presentations by the advisory committee chairs. Does any committee chairs want to make any presentations tonight? Not seeing any, okay. So we'll move to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. There is no audience, so we won't poll the audience. So we'll just go straight to item number 1. And it's Councillor Thompson.
I'll move the recommendation as is.
Seconded. Councillor Humphreys.
I've had a chance to speak with Mr. Ramuno and Mr. Elliott about it. I'm supportive of the deferral of the development charges to help stimulate the construction of a hotel within Aurora. However, I'd like to see some sort of additions to it in the sense that I wanted to see a time frame associated with this deferral. I'm okay with it as long as the construction will happen over an appropriate period of time, and that it's not a transferable deferral. And so in my conversations with Mr. Elliott and Mr. Ramuno, they both felt that that was feasible. We're all familiar with another property that was purchased by a hotel developer and has sat undeveloped for many years, and I just want to avoid the situation whereby, we waive the DC charges and then the site doesn't get developed for many years. And so for me, I think it's appropriate to put a time frame, and I'll leave it to staff to determine the appropriateness of it, but I'd like to give the staff a chance to comment on it, but then move a motion to that effect. So perhaps Mr. Ramuno would like to comment on assigning a time frame to this for the development to be built.
Mr. Ramuno?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I support a time frame. I'm thinking, between an appropriate time frame would probably be, a 2 or 3 year period in order to allow the proponent to submit a site plan to be considered by council and to receive the necessary agreements and approvals. 2 years would be sufficient time.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. So I'd like to move a motion, an amendment, that the deferral of the development charges be based on construction within a specified time frame as directed by staff in the, I guess my understanding is in the agreement that they will be struck between the applicant and the town.
Need a seconder for it? Second by Councillor Tom. Any comments or questions on the amendment?
I would just request either, Mr. Marr's not here right now, but just to ensure that the wording is appropriate, that's all.
Yep.
I don't know if Mr. Ramuno can comment on that or on the appropriateness of the wording.
Mr. Ramuno, if you could just comment on if the appropriateness of the wording would be correct for the amendment.
Perhaps the clerk could read it back for Mr. Ramuno, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I do apologize. I actually was just about to ask the councillor if he could just clarify his intent so that I can perhaps ensure that I have the wording correctly.
How about we can leave the wording to staff, but specifically the intent is that there be a time frame associated with the deferral of the development charges so that they complete the construction within that set time frame. If they fail to do so, then there's no longer the deferral.
Are you okay with that, Secretary? Okay. Councillor Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that somebody is interested in purchasing this property and building a hotel. So in that case, 3 years seems like a long time when we have a prospective buyer. Are you shaking your head, Ms. Van Leeuwen? Okay, so we'll leave it up to staff then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
And just to add that it's also non-transferable, so they cannot use that then to sell off or flip that parcel of land as well. And so my understanding in talking to Mr. Elliott is, since the town will create that agreement, that we can put those conditions within it.
Councillor Kim?
Are we just talking to the amendment, or we're going to go back and talk about it?
Yeah. Okay. So any more comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So back to the original motion. Any comments or questions? Councillor Kim and then Councillor Abel.
Regarding the, through Mr. Chair, that council requested your region take similar actions, how long will an action, through you to Mr. Ramuno, for something like this to happen, how long generally will it take the region to respond? And if they respond favorably, will it just be for the town of Aurora, or will it be for the greater York region, so it'll benefit everyone else as well?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through Mr. Chair, in speaking with the staff person dealing with development charges at the region, it's unlikely that the region will agree with the deferral request in this case. They haven't in the past. They've only granted deferral of development charges in very specific, unique cases related to nonprofit organizations. However, if council passes the motion, it'll be forwarded on to the regional clerk and the appropriate staff person for their consideration, but in my opinion, it's unlikely that the region will approve a similar deferral request.
Through Mr. Chair to Mr. Romano, so given that it's, in your opinion, that it's unlikely that York Region would be aligned with our request, would a $565,000 differential, if we defer that amount, would that be sufficient for potential investors to still go ahead with the hotel development, seeing that it'll still be well over $2 million?
Mr. Romano?
Through Mr. Chair, we hope so. I mean, it is close to $600,000. I mean, again, if the region were to approve the deferral request, the regional rate would be reduced by $1 million, so it'd be about 1.6 in total. But the town's portion is close to $600,000. It's a significant amount of money.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to either Mr. Romano or Mr. Elliott, I believe the town of Caledon, they had a similar deferral in D.C. for a development of a hotel a few years ago, and they passed a similar motion or bylaw in 2011. And I believe that the DC that came in was about 11,000, and they had to top up their DC reserves by 252,000. So would a similar need be required here in Aurora? Should we also pass this deferment?
I guess I'll pass it to Mr. Elliott.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a very good question. The way you've put it, is there a need to top up the DCs, is different, and I'll have to ask that question very specifically. In the DC legislation, if we were to offer discounts in our bylaw, we're not allowed to factor those discounts back in and sort of transfer them to the other payees of DCs. But it doesn't, it seems the legislation is silent as to whether if we offered a deferral that we would have to top it up. I'm fairly confident that we would not be required to top it up, but I'll double check before next week. Complicated question though.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Councilor Kemp? Yeah. Councilor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the region amended the development charges recently, within the last year or two. And before, hotels were charged the same as other non-residentials. But now, there's another way to get some more money, so they're going to also charge an amount for each room as if it was an apartment residence. And in my mind, that's sort of double dipping. And and it's also noted that compared to other regions and municipalities, it's excessive. And so this has been pointed out in the table, and you can see that very clearly. Is there any reason that the region is going to try and make other municipalities more attractive for investment by hotels and make ours less attractive by charging this exorbitant amount, or excessive in my mind? I'm wondering if my question can be clear, did the region come to our municipality and engage them in the process of this methodology as it is in page 3? And if they did, why would we go along with it?
Mr. Romano, if you want to start, maybe to see Dan. Mr. Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good question. In fact, I was the one that was drafting our DC bylaw, and I was comparing and trying to harmonize our DC bylaw with the region's. It's our staff in this building that have to interpret our bylaw and the region's bylaw and the school board's bylaw. And to minimize the risk of error in interpretation, we wanted to try to harmonize the language, the definitions, and the formulas. This is the only anomaly of calculation, really, in the region's bylaw, and so I duplicated it. I knew that Richmond Hill had already done the same, and so I just went ahead and did that. I drew it to the attention of council in the process, and in my consultation with the development community, and I heard no outrage. With respect to the region targeting ourselves, the region's bylaw is uniform across the region, so they will charge on this basis whether you're building that hotel here in Aurora or in Vaughan or in King Township. And so the same DCs would be applicable in each of those locations for the region.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott, and I do understand that. Well, my question, if I could be a little more clear, why would we agree with the region that this is a good way of doing it? I understand we went along with their methodology, but would they not have come forward to the municipalities and say, you know what, we've found a way to increase our DCs, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to allow DC developments the same as we did, but hotels, we're going to get more money, and this is how we're going to do it. And would not anyone in the region have an opportunity, or municipalities within the region, have an opportunity to say, you know what, we're trying to attract hotels to the York region, maybe you shouldn't do that, because I don't think we're in favor of doing that. And thank you very much for consulting and engaging us. Those are our comments. Were we engaged, is my question.
Mr. Elliott?
Through Mr. Chair, the area treasurers, amongst others, had an opportunity during a consultation period with the region. It was late in the process. There was no sort of analysis from the region provided on what the outcomes of this calculation would be, and I think it just sailed past, quite frankly, all of us, that what is the financial implication of this subtle change. And as it turns out, the facts are before you here tonight. It's quite a difference, and I think our request to the region, I know I've had a couple of conversations with staff from the region wanting copies of this report, having a discussion with us as to what that deferral agreement might look like, and so there's some interest at the staff level. I have not seen any draft of a report going back up to regional council, but they may be holding off waiting for this formal resolution from us, from this council, to the region.
Well, thank you very much, and if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm sort of indicating if we pass this and it goes just to the staff at the region, it may not be ever brought to the attention of other municipalities or even the council members at the region who make these decisions and might be aware of it. So I'm going to suggest that we send letters to, with the impact and on the decision that the region made and what we have been brought forward for our consideration, and also be given to council members of the region so that they can understand and it gets right to their attention, because we're trying to attract tourism and build hotels, and this makes us less attractive to everyone in the region. Maybe Markham can afford it because at the Pan Am Games, but certainly for the Northern Six, it is impactful. So I'm wondering if we could just take a little more, getting some attention and forward it to at that level so that they get it. Because East Gwillimbury's got a Newmarket, we're all going to be in the same boat. King has now got Magna there, they may want to put a hotel in. And the first thing we're going to say is, well, you know what, we'll put it somewhere else, but not in your area because it's too expensive. So that's, I'll wait, I can see Councillor Perry was going to make a comment, so I'll just...
I was going to ask you, Councillor, did you want to make a motion?
I do want to...
Or do you want to wait till...
I'll make an amendment that we forward our decision to municipalities, planning, and council members of the region.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Perry?
Yeah.
Any comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the original motion as amended. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Listening to Councillor Abel speak, I was wondering if Mr. Elliott could maybe give a clarification of how an upper-tier or lower-tier municipality gets to their development charges. It's not something, I was under the impression that they're in place to recoup the costs of the increased infrastructure. Could you clarify how development charges,
how they're supposed to look.
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure how to answer that question. How are they supposed to look? Development charge legislation is fairly specific in many areas and fairly open in others, and it's developed over time through practice. Council is familiar with the experience that we had a couple of years ago with our old DC bylaw, where it was challenged at the OMB, and the Orangeville decision sort of led the way, and sort of we took a step forward trying to be progressive in a calculation, and all of the clients of the consultant sort of did the same, and as it turns out, the OMB decided that was pushing the envelope, I suppose, is the best way to do it, best way to say it, and so we had to retract. I think there's a continual evolution of the way development charges are calculated. This methodology here for hotels is recognizing that hotels are a little different. They do put a significant drain on the municipal resources, from water and sewer through to roads, transportation, and even other facilities in the community. And so they do need to contribute to the costs of expanding our infrastructure to accommodate them. And the region sort of set this bar, and as I mentioned earlier, I was harmonizing our bylaw, and this was probably the most significant variance from our old language to the new that was made.
Councilor Fair?
Has York Region's development charge bylaw passed the appeal period? So there won't be any appeals on how this rate is calculated?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson, and then Mayor Dow. Oh, sure. Mayor Dow?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add a bit to what Mr. Elliott said, there was extensive consultation with BUILD, so the Building Industry and Land Development Group in York Region, when the development charge bylaw was being, when the update was being proposed, and it probably took, I'm going to say it was over a 3-month period that this consultation went on. So there was a lot of development within the industry itself. And as Mr. Elliott's pointed out, it's a bit of a catch-22 because we do indeed want hotels. We're all looking to have hotels here in order to develop some tourism. But hotel use also puts a substantial strain on the infrastructure system. So it's a bit of a catch-22, and sometimes the best way to handle that is to all of a sudden it pops up and say, we can't, we don't want to build here, we don't want to develop here because there's a substantial price penalty, if you will, for us to develop New York regions, as opposed to, I think Ajax was the low end. And sometimes you need that as perhaps as a bit of a wake-up call, if you will, to say, oh, maybe we need to look at this a bit differently. But it's sometimes overlooked, as, in the haste of, the larger issue is with the actual housing component of the development charge bylaw. So certainly this is an opportunity for us to go back to the region and say, we'd like you to look at this.
Thank you, Mayor Dow. I'll go with Councilor Thompson first, then Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the comment I heard from Councillor Kim's question that the region may not be interested in the deferral, it's even more reason to put the time frame on the agreement, because if it's not enough, then if time elapses, then it goes back to the original plan. But I am surprised that the region's taking that position, given that in the report it identifies the fact that the region itself has approved very few hotels as a result of this. And so I would think even a self-assessment of their own policies has shown a decline in the number of applications or interested parties in developing of hotels in there. And so through you to Mr. Ramuno, when you and your staff go back to the region and have conversations, are we going to try and highlight the fact that obviously this seems to be a barrier, and that the statistics prove the fact that unless something's done about it, there may be a lull in the development within New York Region in general?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we certainly will. And I did had a conversation with the regional staff just this afternoon, and I think with the this council's weight behind the resolution being sent to regional council. Hopefully, it'll be placed on regional council's radar screen as well, but we'll continue to have those discussions. And it's true, we haven't seen many hotels recently throughout the region, and we do have interest here in town, and we're hoping we can convince the region to also look at amending their development charge rate for hotels.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Elliott. So, Mr. Elliott, the way the motion reads is that really for any subsequent applications, we will defer the amounts until the review of the DC charge bylaw. When is that review scheduled to take place?
Mr. Elliott?
It'll be another 3 years for us. The way I interpret this is that staff are authorized to essentially offer these agreements. However, the legislation itself requires council to approve the deferral agreement on a case-by-case basis, and so any such deferral agreement would come here for ratification.
Great, that was my follow-up question. Thank you.
Councilor, you're okay? Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move to item number 2, and that was pulled by Councilor Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll get you to move a motion, please.
Oh, sorry, I'd like to put this motion on the floor, please.
Seconded by Councilor Peary. Councilor Kemp?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's a great report. I like the options. I had a couple of questions through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Leeuwen. We have heard in the past many residents complaining about commuters parking in Town Park, and that is mentioned on your report. So how will we address commuters who use Town Park for the whole day?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned in the report, staff have been monitoring Town Park. There doesn't seem to be an issue based on our observations. We have done this for a period of a couple of weeks, attended Town Park at different times during the day. There has always been parking available, 30 to 40 spots on average, with the exception of one evening when there was a concert in the Parks series. Going forward, we could implement a 3-hour maximum parking time frame for Town Park as a whole. The implications of doing that may impact users of the park. For example, if somebody during the summer wanted to take their children to the splash pad on a day like today when it's 30 degrees out and they wanted to stay for an extended period of time, that might impact the use of the park. So I think that's something to consider going forward, and I certainly would want to consult with Mr. Downey in terms of, how that might impact users of the park, including, the ball association, softball association, those kinds of things.
Councilor Kemp?
Yes. Through Mr. Chair, again to Ms. Van Leeuwen. I did notice I think it's great work that staff was able to go back to the Town Park and monitor during the summer. It seems like during the summer months. Would it be more logical to monitor the park in the non-summer months when there's more heavier traffic? Myself, a GO train commuter, the train is probably about 70% full because of all the summer occasions, or seasonality not really an issue here.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, we can continue to monitor and report back. I do understand that, summer months there's going to be less commuters, so we can certainly undertake to do that and report back.
Councilor Kemp?
And we also had actually a few residents mentioned about during the winter, when there's a lot of celebrations and partying going on, and they want to have overnight guests due to excessive drinking or whatever, and they would get ticketed because they left their car parked. Would this permit system allow for them to have a permit so they can park during the winter months during these moments?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it would allow for that just-in-time parking permit. So there is a Web Plus that offers an e-commerce side as well. So we could, going forward, if we were to look at implementing a comprehensive parking permit solution, it would include the ability to purchase a parking permit at any time online.
Councilor Kim?
Yep. And lastly, through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Leeuwen, I like the option, the recommendation put forward. It'd be nice to have this ready in time for the winter month and have this budget kind of, the cost be put into the 2015 budget. And it states here in the alternative recommendation number 1 that fast-tracking that option would mean that it would impact delivery of other projects. Can you detail or just kind of highlight what types of delays and what other priorities are prevalent right now?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are a number of IT projects that are going on currently. It would adjust some of the timelines as we have IT resources are limited. In speaking with the manager of IT, she doesn't believe it will have a large impact on any of those projects. This vendor, we've dealt with this vendor in the past when we implemented the handhelds, and they are an excellent vendor. They were they were very easy to deal with. They were very professional. They responded in a timely manner, kept to their timelines, their work plan, their schedules. So the impact, I believe, would be minimal.
Councilor Kim?
Okay. Well, you know what, if... I thought I had read somewhere the cost for this, through Mr. Chair to Ms. Van Leeuwen. What would be the cost for this recommendation? Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have received a quote from the vendor, $27,500. And that would provide us with the functionality to manage all the permits, as well as the Web Plus functionality.
Okay. Well, through Mr. Chair, given the amount of comments and complaints we received from residents, I'm not sure if it would require an amendment, but I would like to fast forward this and move this into this budget and whatever ramifications that might have. And I like the alternate recommendation number 1. I'd like to...
Councilor Kim, we would have to defeat what's currently in front of us and then put forward a different one because it is in essence the opposite of what is recommended.
Okay. I'll wait to hear what my colleagues have to say and move forward from there.
Thank you. I have Councilor Thompson next, then Councilor Humphreys, Abel, Loredon, and Councilor Perry. Councilor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A similar comment with regards to when we chose to monitor the town parking lot. I think there is value in taking a look at it in the fall. I know that last fall, when the issue continued to surface for myself, there wasn't any spaces available, but that was September and October, which traditionally you'll see more people. It does say within the system, it says that there's an unlimited amount of permit types and it's fully configurable. So through to Ms. Van Leeuwen, for instance, could you set it up so that a resident could somehow show proof of residency and then get a permit for the Monday to Friday so that, as a commuter, they could find that additional parking around the town park and that permit would identify them as a resident?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we could do a number of different things. And when I was talking about different permit types, so daily, monthly, weekly, overnight, we have the ability to actually go in and block out times as well. So if we know that there's going to be a snow event and we do not want to issue permits for that evening, we can block that out. So it is fully configurable.
Great, and I think, given the challenge situation around there, I think that having a system that has a an unlimited number of options is great, because then we can determine how best to move forward with it. My only other question really in terms of financial implications is, while you say the capital costs, you say there'll be, annual support and ongoing fees. Is there any indication of what those may be?
Ms. Van Lent?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it's $5,000 for the parking permit solution and $3,000 for the Web Plus.
Councillor Humphries?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Van Lien. Thank you very much for the report. It's excellent, and I'm really pleased to see that the initial investment for the handhelds and that the solution is so flexible that it allows us to grow and seems easily configurable, which is really a big plus to me. And most of my questions were answered. I'm wondering just one question. I know that Councillor Kim had mentioned to fast-track this, but perhaps, is there an opportunity in our timeline of budgeting that we can have this as a first item agenda, perhaps, and maybe perhaps as a council, make a decision on that?
Councillor Humphries, I'll interim CEO to answer that.
Thank you. Through you to the chair. Later on in this budget, or in this agenda package, there's a report about accelerating the budget process. So all things being equal, the budget should be struck roughly 90 days from tonight. So my advice would be that this obviously is of importance to committee and to council. Have this as a given, if you will, in the budget, but actually strike the budget when you do it with, approve this item when you strike the overall budget 90 days from today. Again, just as we talked at the last meeting about making decisions that sort of predetermine the outcome of your budget in isolation, that isn't really a best practice. But I think given the fact that the budget's going to be approved quickly, I think the staff can do the work, get all the paperwork ready, and be ready to press send, hopefully on December the 7th, to implement this project. That'll give them some incentive.
Councillor Humphries?
Great, thank you very much, and that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eden?
Thank you, and I know we keep referring to the town park area because it's been pointed out to us, but we're talking town-wide. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Van Lien?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So we're looking at implementing a parking permit system town-wide, town facilities, on street, across the town. It will also allow for some permitting at town park for the residents who require overflow parking.
And thank you, because there's a lot of rentals in that area, so the driveway may only accommodate 3 or 4 vehicles, and they may need a few, and that's the kind of permitting we're talking about. The other part is the residents, and Councillor Kim, I think, broached on it, when they need exceptions to park overnight, if they're having guests from out of town, or they're entertaining, and those sort of ideas. And then in that sort of situation, they'd be able to go online and say, you know what, we're going to permit 3 parking spots. Will they have to identify the cars, or how? That's the one part of the question. And then the other part is how are we going to make everyone know about this?
Ms. Van Lien?
Through you, to answer your first, Mr. Chair, to answer your first question, those permits would be available online and would be tied to a license plate. And it integrates with our handhelds, so as our parking enforcement officers are out, they punch in the license plate, and it comes up that these individuals have a parking permit. That they purchased a permit online. So it's an integrated system. And then secondly, the question around getting this information out, we can do communication a number of ways, our website, we can at Access Aurora, because we do currently issue parking permits for Town Hall for overnight winter parking, and we've had uptake on the program, more people participating and requesting these parking permits, so through Access Aurora we can certainly get this information out.
Okay, so I appreciate it all means well, and it's going to take a while to move this through. I did want to make council aware that in the winter we have a program where you can't park on the street for, I think it's 6 months or something like that. And then I read that Ottawa doesn't have, you're just told you can't park on the street when it's snowing. And they get far more snowfall than we do. Yet a whole city, that's how they govern theirs. We say you can't at any time during those times. So this is a little softening along our way of doing it and getting towards how Ottawa deals with it. The only problem and comment I'm going to make is that if I'm entertaining and I have people over and then I say, you know what, you're going to take a cab home and it's 1 in the morning, I have to know at that point, where's your car, where's your license, and then go online to put it in at 1 in the morning in order that it won't get tagged the next morning. So, some of those circumstances, it's just not going to be functioning. But it is a start. So whoever is asking for that, in a perfect world, they'll know beforehand that their guests are staying overnight, and that's why there is. But there's a lot of times when you make a judgment call during the course of the evening. And people will welcome the idea of not driving home, but then we have to deal with our parking enforcement that will say, well, in this case, so is there going to be some sort of way we can allow for a little grace in that situation? To you, Ms. Spanlon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, going forward as we begin to plan parking permit management solution, all of these things we're going to need to sort out. So I will be working with bylaw staff and staff from Ilmar's group to determine the best way to move forward. I appreciate that from time to time, people may not be able to plan in advance. So I think it's something that we need to consider, but it's also we're going to need to consider, okay, so we need to watch the weather. We need to understand when a major snowstorm is moving in, and then we're going to need to get the cars off the road, and so we'll need to block time in the system so that people won't be able to purchase permits, right? So we're going to need to sort this out.
And that I understand, but I wasn't specifically what I was talking about. I was talking about where the odd person will close the doors and the party at 2 in the morning and park the car there, and then they wake up the next morning and go, oh, you got tagged. You know what, I didn't realize, I didn't know, I didn't have the faculties to do it. I wasn't able to do it. Is there a way that we can say, you know what, that's an exception, good for you, we'll forgive the infraction? And I'm sensing not at this stage. The other thing that came to mind from residents is people that have campers and boats. Sometimes they say, you know what, we're going to be on a month journey and we're going to come back on a Sunday night, and then we're going to put the camper back in storage somewhere else, so we'll take it home the next day. And there is a way for them to apply at the town to say, you know what, we're going to have that overnight on our driveway or on our street, and it'll be removed the next day. That is allowed as well, is that correct?
Ms. Spanlon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this program would permit that. So currently, we do provide exemptions to parking, but is really not tracked in any kind of manner. We don't collect a fee for those permits. Those permissions are given by different groups here at the town. So, Parks and Rec might give permission to a sports team traveling, or bylaw might give permission on occasion to somebody who wants to park their RV on the street for that night when they're sort of in between. But it's not tracked, and so it just lends itself to poor customer service in my perspective, because sometimes the communication across the organization isn't succinct.
Councillor?
We are having a parking bylaw that will be addressing motor vehicles, boats, etc. That bylaw hasn't come forward. That's going through traffic. I know I've asked this on more than one occasion. We're not settling that right here, right now, are we? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Pamela?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe what you're referring to is storage of those recreational, the trailers on private property?
That's one instance, yes.
That is regulated through our zoning bylaw. So zoning bylaw contains provisions with respect to storage of trailers and those types of recreational things. Parking of those, like an RV, is regulated through a parking bylaw. So neither one of those is being contemplated right now, other than Mr. Ramuno has a comprehensive zoning bylaw that's underway. This is simply a parking permit solution. So currently, RVs aren't permitted to park on the street. This would allow that resident to purchase a permit for that one night while he's bringing his RV out of storage, place it on the street, and he's leaving the next day to go on his vacation, and then again on his return.
Thank you for your time and clarifying that for me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Dodd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be brief. I wouldn't be moving this project up too quickly because I think we better have a fairly strong communications plan in place before this goes out, because your complaints will change from people saying that there's people parking where I want to park to, what are you doing putting a parking ticket on my car? So I think we better make sure that we've got a pretty solid communications plan before this goes out, or our phone lines will be burning up.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. City of Toronto has implemented an application that allows people easy access to their green P parking. I recognize that we're not talking about parking spots that are municipally owned and that we're charging, but is there an opportunity to implement some sort of an application to make this process a little bit easier?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you could clarify what you mean by an application process. Like an app?
Yeah.
Sorry. I think that would require, perhaps. I'd have to speak with the vendor to understand if that's a possibility. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Second question sort of fell in line with what Councillor Thompson was speaking about, and Councillor Abel spoke about it as well. It sounds like we might be making some changes to allow for individuals to park their RVs, or if somebody in town who lives in town is looking for some sort of a permit so that they can go to the GO train station and purchase a 5-day parking permit at Town Park. I see policy changes that need to be taking place, or at least something for us to review. Is that something you're contemplating bringing before us, or is it just going to be a fee change that we're going to see when we review all of our fees?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, well, this, like I said before, this will require significant discussion internally, because it does impact different departments. It will impact Ilmar's group and their snow clearing. It will impact Al's, users of the park. So we will have to work together to come up with the best solution that fits our needs as well as the needs of the residents. So it's all encompassing.
Councillor Perry.
So those discussions are taking place at the staff level. There will be a report formalizing those discussions that come before council, just to clarify, at some point, if we move forward in this direction.
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly we can bring a report forward outlining the program and the communication plan.
And is that something that will need to be codified formally through a bylaw, or is it going to be more loosey-goosey?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we weren't contemplating bylaw changes at this time. This is more of a administration solution to the parking permit.
Councillor Perry.
I would only add that although we're talking about the administration, we're going to be needing to change some policies. I think a bylaw is probably the most efficient way to do that, but I guess reading this, if we're pushing it forward, I would still want a bylaw in place to formalize parking arrangements prior to this coming in. I think it makes sense. We don't have to move on that right now, but it's something I think we'll all be mindful of.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Van Leeuwen, for this report. I know it wasn't easy, and it's not going to be easy going forward. I'm not clear, is this permit system going to bypass the winter parking restriction? Will somebody be able, okay, you know what I mean?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're going to look at providing opportunities for residents who require overnight parking on occasion. I can tell you that, for example, in Richmond Hill and in Markham, they have a similar type of program, and they provide somewhere between 5 and 10 exemptions for the winter months per year. So we may, as we work together, we may put some limits on the number of exemptions that we're going to provide through this solution. And that's why I think it would be wise for us to report back to council on what the program looks like. How many parking spots are we going to permit at our town facilities? What are the parameters around that? How many exemptions will we provide per household per year for overnight parking? Those types of parameters. So we will develop that program as we go forward and report back to council.
Thank you, follow-up. And the resident that sent maybe most of us emails complaining that they got a ticket because somebody was parking partially on the road and it was in the winter and they got a ticket. Is this going to help that person out at all, or is what Mr. Simonovskis is doing going to help that person out at all? They were in a cul-de-sac, so they would be a third-level snow clearing?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not certain that it would help this resident if they were parking on the edge of their driveway and their bumper was sticking over onto the roadway. That's not the intention of this parking permit solution.
Thank you. There's a perception on behalf of the residents, and I know that from your report and from what you said that there are spots around town parks. But for the last 10 years, since I first started to sit on this council, this has been an ongoing issue with the people who live around Town Park. So I would appreciate, as others have said, if we continue monitoring the situation for the fall. And if that really is an issue, we need to address it. And with respect to that, was mentioned, if somebody shows a residency permit, they would be able, say, to park around Town Park Monday to Friday. People would be able to use this permit system to park around Town Park.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, that is part of the program that would need to be developed. Are you talking about I'm sorry, can you clarify?
Actually, what I'm worried about is I'm worried about commuters. I'm worried about commuters from out of town being able to buy a permit and park around Town Park. So how would the residency thing work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we would require proof of residency.
So they come into Town Hall and they show you proof of that?
Yes.
Thank you. My last point is I was surprised to know that we have people renting spaces around Town Hall and in this parking lot. And I know that sometimes this parking lot is very challenged on a Tuesday evening if the seniors have an event and then we have a council meeting. So is there any way not to permit parking in this parking lot between the hours of 6:30 and 10? Or is there any way we could ensure that the parking will be used for the seniors and the council meetings?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the parking permits that we issue for Town Hall are for the winter months, and they've been in place for several years. We do have time limits on when we're permitted to park. I can't recall off the top of my head the start time in the evening, but they need to remove their cars by 8 a.m. in the morning.
Well, thank you, and I think it's something we could watch, because I know there have been occasions when there have been special events at the seniors and at Town Hall, and there is not enough parking, and that's one of the reasons we added the back parking area on the upper parking lot. So I think it's something that we could keep an eye on. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I just want to make a quick comment. I believe, like Mayor Daw, that this is a work in progress, so I'm looking forward to when it does. Our motion is to put this to the capital budget for consideration, so when that does come, I'm looking forward to seeing some different improvements on what's already been put before us, which is great, but I'm sure there's a few things that we need to tweak here and there as far as what we heard, hours and length of time to park, and so I'm looking forward to that. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we move to item number...
So, Mr. Chair, could you do that vote again, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All those in favor, hands up. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you. I just wanted to see if it was unanimous.
It is unanimous. So we move to number 3. Item number 3, Councilor Gardner, you pulled that?
Move that as is, please.
Seconder? Second by Councilor Thompson. Councilor Gardner?
My first question is about the consultant. We just finalized our strat plan in 2011. It was only approved by council in 2012. It's pretty new, and I know the councilors did a lot of work on it. We had a consultant, and I see Mr. Rouleau is in the audience. I'm wondering whether, Mr. Rouleau is very competent. I'm wondering if he could comment on whether or not we need a consultant.
Mr. Rouleau, if you could come down and join us, maybe you could answer that for us.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The report itself is currently not recommending that we move forward with a consultant. We came forward to council several months back with a couple of different options, and the direction from council at the time was to not move forward with funding or an RFP to acquire a consultant to assist. The original proposal that was put forward in the budget was to have someone assist with consultation activities and also to assist with a peer review of the plan. What we've done is we've come back with a series of options. One was a scaled-back version of the consultation activities that we believe could be done in-house, and that was previous direction from council. So what we've done today is brought forward a report that reflects that.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, that's good news. The second is a comment. This plan was built around sustainability, and the very first point, A, is the natural environment. And Mr. Kyle has done a comprehensive study using all of the information that's out there, and the experts have decided that there is great economic value in natural assets for very many reasons, and I'm sure Mr. Rouleau has a copy of that. So I would just say that we must protect Aurora's existing tree canopy, and this is especially as important as so many of our ash trees are going to go. Thank you.
Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I'm supportive of what's before us. I like the approach that's being presented here, and that it's consistent with the living plan approach that we discussed when we adopted the original strategic plan update. I'm supportive of the fact that we're going to draft a committee, but still engage the key stakeholders and really create an action plan for the next 4 years to help guide council. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into come to a point where council can be supportive of this.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Councilor Kim, Councilor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I I like what I see in the update for the strategic plan. We do need overriding guidelines in which we need to plan and to guide the other master plans. And speaking of master plans, we have so many master plans, as we all know. It gets kind of confusing with the Promenade Plan and Parks and Rec Master Plan and all these, Sport Aurora plans, and they all really have a common denominator in that it impacts, the economics, the businesses that can come in, it impacts the environment. And, when I see when I read the strategic plan, it's so high level that it's so high level. It's essentially we have, when staff put together a strategy or a plan, it falls under supporting exceptional quality of life. So we check that off and we can bring that forward to council, or this falls into leadership and corporate management, so we can bring that to council. I think what I would like to see in the next strategic plan is to have consultants, we pay them quite well for, is to kind of how to implement, how to connect the dots between the strategic plan and all the other plans that are underneath this umbrella. And I think that's where we're kind of hamstrung in terms of how do we, there's some recommendations in the other plans, let's kind of connect the dots and put that a true master plan, and I think that the strategic plan should be able to facilitate that, because the strategic plan on its own, I'm not sure how much value it has. I mean, in the investment world, when you have, the asset allocation decision really makes 80% of the performance in your portfolio, and the rest is tactical. But in this world, when you have the strategic plan, it's not like the asset allocation. You don't get the rewards of the asset allocation. It's quite simply just a very high level in terms of this falls under this. We can move forward with this plan because it falls under this huge umbrella. But I'd like to see something that connects the underlying plans to the strategic plan that can help us, and to have consultants kind of come up with some options and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate Councillor Kim's comments, because it's exactly what this strategic plan is actually to do that. There was a committee struck with consultants and council members and members of public as well for input, and the strategic plan does line up to every other business plan we have. And I think what I like about what's in front of us right now is that there's a suggestion that a committee is struck with the mayor as lead and 4 council members, and I'm sure staff as well. And what we'll be able to do is, what I'd like to see, it does give us back a little bit more of the authority to ensure that we report out those key performance indicators we really wanted to see mapped against the strategic plan to all the individual plans that Councillor Kim has mentioned. And I think that is missing, and it's evident because of what we just heard from Councillor Kim. We really should have been reporting out how we're doing on the strategic plan against all the other plans that are really driven by this higher level strategy. So for me, it's perfect timing, and I think it just indicates, or I know it indicates, that we have a lot of great work being done in all the individual master plans and other areas that all areas across the organization. There's an opportunity for us to get back in and ensure that the current strategic plan is still robust, and that we're still going to go in that direction. And how are we doing? How's the strategic plan, heading up or sort of being successful against all the other plans to it? So really, it's perfect timing, and I think that is the absolute key that we are missing here, is reporting on how this plan is doing against all the plans that are supporting this overall umbrella. So I'm just thankful for the report and looking forward to hopefully being part of this committee.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Engel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is value, and I think we can all agree. I'm pleased that we are tweaking this with the committee. I know this council has felt and turned down other recommendations for committees to be struck. I know it's a lot of work, but I think they're important and they accomplish things. When you set up a reason and a strategy to go forward with committee. So I'm all in favor of a steering committee, reviewing and bringing forward some other ideas. I know I enjoyed it very much last term. It was a great way to introduce myself to the business and strategy going forward for a term of council. So I'm glad it's being brought up in the first year. I'm looking at the summary of the key trends, and there's a couple of things I would like seeing added, and I know the steering committee will do it. Councillor Gardner brought up urban canopy under the U4, which was brought up last term by Mr. Tree and Mr. Downey, so I don't see that on the list, but that's very key in my mind. And economic, I know it's on the table. I'm looking at page 5 of the report. We don't have anything about tourism, and I know we're very favorable moving a tourist-based sort of economy, whether through sports, music, entertainment, etc. So that's the reason why you want to go and revisit these ideas. We have members from last term that and new members that can add, and it would be very valuable for us to get that going. The more involved, the better. And so I am all in favor, and as I usually am, in moving forward with the committee to task and to move forward on this important item.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All of those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next item, number 4. House pulled by Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, move as is.
Seconded. Councillor Perry. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. On page 2, at the bottom, building and bylaws, 8,300 favorable. I think that would be Ms. Van Leeuwen's.
Do you have another question possibly?
No, that's my only one, thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? So go Councillor Thompson, and then we'll go back to Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Through to Mr. Elliott. Mr. Elliott, the budget forecast is as of May 31st. We're at the first week of September. Is it typical for us to get a bit of a 3-month lag, or are there factors why this didn't come to us sooner?
Mr. Elliott?
Through Mr. Chair, there's a number of factors, and my desire would have been to have this in front of council in July. That's my normal target. The end of July meeting ended up being our target, and that was canceled, and then it was moved. And unfortunately, during my vacation absence, in an effort to manage the size of the August 11th meeting's agenda for council, this item was sort of pulled off of that agenda for consideration tonight. And I would have liked it to have been there, because I believe that financial information needs to be timely. Otherwise, it's not like wine; it doesn't get better with age. And so I would have liked to have done that. So normally I target my May cutoff for before summer, or in that first July meetings. And then we also have another one coming forward this fall.
Thank you. That was the point I was going to address. I mean, typically I thought we'd seen it sooner, but I think that, as you stated, I mean, it's important for us to get information in a timely fashion, because the lag was so great in this case. It was a little bit of a concern, but you've addressed it, and going forward, you've indicated that typically it's, 45 to 60-day window from when you close the books and present it to us, so appreciate that. My second question is for Mr. Simonauskas. With regards to the comments, it spoke about the fact that one reason that it's unfavorable for IES is that greater than anticipated utility costs. And my only comment about that is that that was brought up at the budget time, and there was an increase in utility costs as part of the budget process. And so I thought we had already addressed that, but yet we're identifying it as a reason why we're over budget in 2015. And so, can you shed some light on it? Because really, on the face value of it, it looks like I thought we addressed it, but yet now we're saying we haven't. It's still greater than what we increased at budget time.
Mr. Simonosis?
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair. We started moving towards addressing it in the last budget. The biggest driver is our electricity costs. I think the fortunate aspect of the 2015 marketplace is that our energy with relation to natural gas and fuels has actually come down, so that's been a benefit to us. But we still do have a gap on the electrical side, and that's a piece that we still need to continually close off. My hope from an operation budget perspective was a conversion to LED streetlights would have resulted in a reduction in our overall consumption, but then there would still have to be some payments set aside for basically retiring any debt that we would assume from conversion of those streetlights. So at the end of the day, we still need additional funds for the electrical component of our operating budget.
So in essence, even though we budgeted for an increase in our utility costs, you're saying we didn't budget enough, and that's why we're still seeing a greater than anticipated amount.
Mr. Simonosis?
Through Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Perry?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey. Could you just give me an idea on what the various community programs, which have historically been underfunded, are, and what we can do about that in the future?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Chair, we have historically been underfunded with regards to our contracts for community programs. That is children's programming, seniors programming, adult programming, all community programs that we offer. The department has identified this in past budgets. However, we do need to address this at some point. But it is for all community programs, not specifically targeted at youth or seniors or adults.
Councillor Perry?
So then, this was done again on May 31st. We're not anticipating a doubling of this unfavorable as the year goes on by year end, or this is pretty much what it's looking like at this point in time, or do you think it'll get a little bit worse?
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Chair, no, if I thought it was going to get worse, I would have certainly given you that indication. I don't believe it's going to get worse. We're hoping it's going to get better, quite frankly. We're hoping that the revenues do pick up. It is the control of our expenditures that gives me the greatest concern, and I believe that we do have a good hold on that. The unknown in this is generally revenues. I can't anticipate revenues till the end of the year, as you can appreciate. So we do hope that those revenues targets are met, and if not exceeded, so that this unfavorable number gets better as opposed to worse.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hinkle, if you don't mind, if I go back to Councillor Gardner first, so she can finish up. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, this question is for Ms. Van Leeuwen. On looking at page 2 of the report at the very bottom, and I just don't understand. Perhaps you could clarify it for me.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
In particular, the accessibility costs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so there's a favorable variance of $8,300 due to contract provisions. This is our parking control officers, so we had some savings there. And accessibility costs, I don't know exactly what line item that those accessibility costs, where the savings are. There's an overall operating budget for accessibility costs. There's training that's provided. There's a number of different things that fall under that. So it could be around the training component.
Thank you. I was wondering in particular if it had anything to do with the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And perhaps through you, Mr. Chair, I could ask Mr. Elliott if he would be able to find out.
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think between Ms. Van Leeuwen and myself, we'll get a little bit more information as to exactly where this accessibility savings was for next week. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you mind sending that to me via email? Thank you.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, and just to comment on Councillor Perry's question to Mr. Downey on is there going to be any more, I'm looking at the table on attachment 1, I believe it's page 6, and it does say it's a forecast, so when we look at the variances, it's based on actuals on the second column and then forecast to year end, and it's the difference between the approved budget and the forecast, which gives what the variance is for the year. So I'm glad that you don't see or foresee any more difficulty in meeting the budget. Unfortunately, Mr. Downey, yours is one of the larger budgets, and it's got the greatest variance. So it does bring to my mind would user fees alone be one of the key drivers on trying to make that ends meet? I know we found very valuable last term our user fees in comparison to other municipalities. I think it was a service report. So I don't know that we're historically less than other municipalities online. I think we are online, just slightly below. But there is an investment we make to our residents, and but those are just sort of comments that I'm making. I'm not asking Mr. Downey to comment, except perhaps the one, would user fee increase help offset? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Presently, we bring in about $5.3 million in user fees each year. You will be reading in a future report that we are looking at an increase this year as part of the budget process of 1.1%. That'll bring in approximately $60,000 of additional user fees. Last year's budget, we also had the pressures with regards to the expenditures with community programs, however, came within $1,500 of our overall budget. So that's the issue, that the revenue or the revenue projections are the difficult part of the budget to project or forecast, and that's why when I responded to Councillor Perry's question, I hope the numbers are going to get better. If the revenues come in, then we will see better numbers. I can control the expenditures to a greater degree than I can the revenues, as you can appreciate. But we did bring in higher than anticipated revenues last year, which assisted us in coming in very close to our budget target. We do know we have some pressures, particularly in the fitness area, with the late opening of the fitness center. So the budgets or the numbers, the revenues that we had anticipated bringing in when preparing the 2015 budget, we don't believe those targets are going to be met, but that does not mean that we will not be meeting or exceeding our targets in some other areas.
And just one follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair. Would we be able to get a number on that figure somewhere down the line of the later do the fitness center? Like whether it's 20,000 or 30,000 or anything along those lines? Would that be provided somewhere down the road?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Chair, you will be receiving most up-to-date numbers when you will be looking at the budget, I believe. We do our best to give you some forecasted numbers with regards to that. I can't give you that close a number at this point, other than our forecasted number, but we have, I believe, about a 90-day window that we're looking at with regards to our budget, and we're hoping that we will be able to give you more accurate numbers within that 90-day period.
Right. I was just that specific because of what was going on. That's why I just thought it might be useful if I put that in your ear as we go forward. Thank you.
Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Downey. So it seems here that various community programs have been historically underfunded, and so I interpret that to mean that each year we have community programs that have not been budgeted for, or we don't have money for, but we continue them. And So we've been making up some of the, offsetting some of the costs by savings in shrub bed maintenance or other savings. So am I reading that correctly, that we don't have the budgeted funds for them, but we continue to roll out these community programs? Does that mean that we should discontinue some of the programs so that we don't have to be continuously underfunded and this kind of repeats itself every year?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that wouldn't be my recommendation. The community programs actually is a very good revenue stream, and quite often, most times, our revenues exceed what our expenditures are. So by reducing our expenditures, there will be also a corresponding reduction in revenues, which will be greater than the loss of the revenue of the expenditures that you're realizing. So to cancel these programs would be a greater negative impact on the budget than continuing them. My concern is, I don't like spending more than my budget's allocated. I believe that the budget should be accurate. But we have continued to bring in or exceeded our community program numbers from a revenue perspective, which is greater than the cost of our expenditures.
Councilor Kemp?
Yeah, okay. So most of all of these community programs are revenue-generating activities.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Most of them are. There's approximately 7% of our programs that we operate below our target or below cost neutral. So 93% of our community programs operate as a revenue-generated program.
Councilor Kemp?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gartner, second time.
Thank you. Question to you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, as everybody seems to be asking Mr. Downey questions to him. It's certainly understandable when we have the comment that lower than anticipated fitness program users because of the delay in moving to back to the new fitness center. Do you expect that these user fees will increase when we see the final results for the year?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that you're going to see increased revenues within a number of programs, but I don't believe you're going to see it within the fitness area. But I'm reluctant to give you a number at this point. As I responded to Councillor Abel, I think we'll have a better handle on this as we get closer to the finalization of the budget. But we are certainly looking at good revenues in a number of our programs, but we certainly have identified or raised a red flag with regards to our fitness revenues.
Thank you. Follow-up through you, Mr. Chair. When you're talking about fitness programs, are you talking about the gym memberships or for the class participation?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the fitness involves not only the fitness center or the weight room, but also involves the aerobics room as well as aquafit. So all of those programs are identified as one central revenue source, and that's fitness, and that's where we seem to be having our issues.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, did we have this problem before?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've had issues with regards to revenue generation within this area, I think primarily because of our service levels. We have exceptionally high service levels, and we need to take a look at those service levels. That's one issue. The other issue is that we had anticipated in our budget preparation that we were going to have a longer period of time to collect revenues within the fitness center. That didn't happen, and that has a negative impact on this. We hope to be able to readjust those numbers for the 2016 budget for a more appropriate forecast. But we may be coming in with some suggestions on how we can
better utilize our resources and maximize our revenue opportunities within the fitness area. And that will include not only the fitness club itself in the aerobics area, but Aquafit as well.
Thank you.
Councilor Goddard? Any other comments or questions? I just want to make one comment. I kind of agree with Councilor Abel. I would actually look forward to seeing that number at some point of how much or if any money we actually lost due to the late opening of the AFLC. So that would be great to see at some point. So that being said, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We're moving to item number 6, Councilor Thompson.
Move it as is.
Seconder, Councilor Tom. Councilor Thompson, just before you start, if I could allow CAO maybe to speak briefly to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a couple of observations about the report. I've been here about a month now, and I've had the opportunity to look at some areas where some improvements could be made to your business. And I think the budget process is one obvious candidate where I think some improvements can be made, and I think this report reflects how things can change. I think as an organization, I think you're doing a number of things in terms of your budgeting process. You're doing a number of things very well. In fact, better than many municipalities. You have a policy of contributing a significant amount of money to reserves each year, and you've avoided the temptation of reducing those contributions and as such, you're building, I think, the financial capacity to repair and replace the roads, storm sewers, sidewalks, recreation facilities, buildings, and equipment. These are, for the most part, or were for the most part, funded, this asset base was funded in large part through development charges. So put another way, the initial cost of growth has been funded, for the most part, by new residents. At some point, though, because of the physical geography of Aurora, you will run out of room for greenfield development, and the challenge will be to find ways other than DCs to fund your infrastructure. The good news is that you're not alone. Many municipalities in the GTA, Mississauga, Burlington, and others are facing the ultimate build-out and are managing very well. But back to what I think you're also doing well is you have performance indicators built into your budget so you can measure if you are making progress. At the end of the day, I think you should always ask yourself, when you look at an activity, if we make this expenditure, is the taxpayer better off? And measuring your performance as you do now is the best practice and helps you answer that question. You also have an operating budget forecast which allows you to get a sense of what to expect in the near future. Naturally, the farther out you go in that forecast, the fuzzier things tend to get. And while a Made in Aurora forecast is helpful, and you had that in your budget last year, it simply can't predict things like the current national recession that we're in, or a weak provincial economy, which is saddled with record debt levels, and frankly, the region of York is also struggling with its debt issues as well. So as such, I think you have to make adjustments to these forecasts, and this Budget Directions Report does just that. The Finance Advisory Committee met several weeks ago and it was working with the Treasurer to establish principles for a renewed budget process, and the report was included in your agenda and approved on the consent agenda. One of the elements discussed at that meeting was the need to engage Council much earlier in the budget process, and this report is part of that. I would respectfully suggest that while there are many good things that are being done about the budget process, there's always room for improvement. In my view, it's always prudent, I think, to follow a more business-like approach in developing the budget. Council, for all intents and purposes, serves as a board of directors of an $85 million a year business. You raise that much and you spend that much on an annual basis. A business would approach its financial plan or budget and strike something at the end of the fiscal year, not at the end of the first or second quarter. As such, we are recommending a process for the operating budget which is much more reflective of good business practices. An approved budget in early December of this year for the 2016 budget is what we're recommending. But in order to do that, as I mentioned earlier, we need to engage council now, and I would suggest that earlier next year, perhaps in July of each calendar year, we deal with budget directions for the following year. So next July, you would have some directions report considered by council for the 17 budget. This report tonight is not the budget, but it gives a general indication of what might be in the ballpark, as it were. This is an approach that I've implemented in Caledon, Halton Region, and the City of Burlington, and it works. It does not take away from the discussion in November or December, but it helps focus that discussion. It also has an even more important benefit, I believe. It breaks down the perceived barrier between senior staff and council. I've seen in some municipalities all too often where the budget process and discussion is reduced to an acrimonious debate between staff and elected officials. It's very much an us and them mentality. I'm not suggesting that's the case here, but I've seen this in other jurisdictions. And essentially then the budget process becomes a negotiation. And you may have seen this movie before in other places. And that movie goes, staff bring in a big number and council believes it's their job to reduce that number to an affordable level. And again, in your business world, you wouldn't do a budget that way. It would be much more straightforward. So a budget, in my view, should not be a confrontation. Staff and their bosses, the people sitting on this side of the table, are on the same team. But the first step is to open the conversation and seek direction, which is what this report attempts to do today. So a final comment, I think, about your budget process, and I think Councillor Humphreys made it at the last meeting. She tabled, I think, a great suggestion that once the budget is struck on December 6th, we need a plain language communication to the residents about what's in it for the taxpayers in the budget. What is the financial condition, financial state of the organization, and specifically what the taxpayers are getting for their tax dollars. I think members of council know that because you meet every Tuesday to have this conversation, but I suspect the public doesn't. So I think we could do a better job of communicating what's in it for the taxpayer when they see the budget being struck. So with that, we've had some considerable discussions with ELT about how to build a budget slightly differently this year, and Dan, Elliot, and I are pleased to answer any questions that you might have for bringing forward what I believe is an improved budget process for 16.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate comments from our interim CAO, Mr. Moyle, and certainly his contributions through the Finance Advisory Committee and really both council and staff for their participation in it. I think we've had some great dialogue up to this point, both about, the budget, the process, the guiding principles around it, and I think what you're seeing here is a reflection of some of those discussions, as well as item 7, which will be discussed in a few weeks. For myself, I'm very pleased to see it. I'm optimistic that the approach this time will be much more collaborative between all parties, and that at the end of the day, we'll have even greater results for the residents. And so I'm happy to have moved the motion as is and to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Pruitt.
Thank you. Mr. Royal, greatly appreciated. This is something I know I've asked for in the past. I think 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I definitely made a request that we investigate moving towards the direction that municipalities like Newmarket were moving in, where they set a date, or they set a reasonable target, and it's staff's jobs to work towards that. I don't necessarily think that it's always in the best interest of our residents if we're sitting around the council table late in the process, feeling pressure that we need to cut some things because it's not at a level that we think is acceptable. So we hack and slash without, being as precise in that cut as I think that we could or we should be. I'd rather see our residents getting a more methodical budget that's coming and that already meets our expectations in terms of what we're looking for an increase to be. So if we're all agreeing around the council table that this is an adequate
sum of money, then I think that works. I think that's a good direction to be going in. I look forward to seeing staff, come forward and execute this the way that I think we should be doing, we should have been doing in the past, and I have full faith in their ability to get this done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kemp.
Through Mr. Chair, I just want to thank CEO and staff for presenting this very collaborative, very clear, concise approach. It's just, it absolutely starts off as a partnership and working together towards a budget we can all be really proud of and understand the business concerns and issues. It's just, it's been said, I just want to thank you very much. I believe we're way ahead of the game starting with this process in front of us, and I'm really looking forward to this year's budget process together. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everyone that this is much needed, and it's very methodical, as Councillor Perry mentioned, and I think we have good guidelines in terms of how we can play in the sandpit, I guess. And my question on page 3 regarding using growth money to offset some of the tax pressures, is that recommended? Because it seems like using money that was meant to service the growing areas, it seems like we're borrowing money from a different area or from the future to pay for it today. Is that a good assessment, or am I a little off base there?
You want to start? Mr. CEO?
So I've done this is the 13th budget that I've been involved in, which is done this way. Unfortunately, in each of the communities, there's always been some assessment growth. I think the assessment growth really is the leveler to help you achieve your target. If you were to spend everything, all of that growth, that assessment growth, to simply mitigate a tax increase, that is not a good best practice. It's a combination of things. So I think we'll be getting into the finer details as we start working through the budget, and we can give you a better sense about how much of that assessment growth is going to be used to temper some of these other interests, because it's really about competing interests. One of the basic principles that we're talking about in this report is to actually add to your contributions to repair and replacement reserve. So that's a recommendation, and that there's a cost to that. But perhaps the assessment growth, a part of that could deal with that. It's a package. Also, we're looking at suggesting that we carry on with the work of the fire service to basically ensure that that's not all done at once, but it's phased in over a period of time. We're also recommending, the not diminishing service levels. So it's the same level of service, or perhaps even minor enhancements to services. So it's a package, and there's a number of moving parts to go with it, but a straight taking all your assessment growth and using it just for one particular purpose is not what we're recommending. We're saying that's one revenue source along with other things, and at the end of the day, you'll get a package, and you'll be able to sense how much is being used to make the number a realistic number, and at the same time ensure that we have enough funding in place in the future to deal with the growth-related operating costs of what's being anticipated by the town.
Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mr. CEO, for clarifying that. That's a great explanation. I'm very satisfied with that, and I think this and the other items in this agenda, I think it's kind of collaboration of items, and I think my takeaway is that staff came back with some principles and guidelines that we can all work with, and I'm very pleased with that. So, kudos to staff for bringing this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Any other comments or questions? Do you want to go first? Councillor Abel first. Yep, Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm along the same lines as councillors from the last term, having endured, well, gone through the process, this is a welcome, refreshing way of dealing with the budget process. I want to thank the committee for striking out some key terminology for us. Mr. CAO for putting a nice report together, and I really am pleased to see us going in this direction. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Just one more quick little note. Some may see it and ask about the water budget, which typically is an additional one that we approve, and so perhaps through you to Mr. Elliott, if you'd just like to comment with regards to the water budget, or it's Mr. Simnauskas who is more appropriate. I know we don't control it as much since part of it is driven by the region's increase, but perhaps they'd like to provide some sort of rough outlook on what we're looking for 2016.
Mr. Elliott.
Through you, Mr. Chair, both Director Simnauskas and myself have been in contact with our colleagues and counterparts at the Region of York. Their original forecast of the 10% annual increases in wholesale costs to the lower-tier municipalities had originally been expiring this year, and they were anticipating that it would be lower than that, but that was 5 years ago. Things have changed. Numbers have been recast. As we say, the forecasts get fuzzier the further out they go. They're now anticipating that they'll be back in the 10% range for another couple of years yet. And so I anticipate that our water budget will reflect probably in that close range. Of course, we'll be minimizing operating costs in all areas, in both of our shops. But unfortunately, the province has imposed full cost recovery. We have to step up those contributions to R&R. That's what everybody's doing, and that's what's driving the region's 10%. And when we factor that in with ours, it comes out about 10% as well.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Just appreciated you adding that note.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any other comments or questions? Just want to make a few comments. I think this is a great job by staff bringing this forward. Like Councillor Abel, I want to thank the Finance Advisory Committee for all the hard work they've done to get this on track. I think it's a great job for staff, for council to work together on this and come with a budget that is a great budget and a win for the residents of our town. I just do want to make one quick comment on page 3, fourth paragraph down. It mentions with regards to the forecasted hiring of new full-time staff positions, an organizational review has been initiated with final recommendations being provided early in 2016. While this work is being undertaken, the 2016 budget will not include the forecasted hiring of 11 new full-time positions. Just kind of want to throw in my 2 cents and say that kind of sounds like a hiring freeze of what we were saying a couple weeks ago, even though it's not. So thank you for staff for listening to council and what they were bringing forward, and I'm looking forward to a great working budget. So I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. So, item number 9, Ms. Councillor Abel, you put that? Is it 8? Oops, sorry about that. Number 8, Councillor Thompson.
With your indulgence, I'd just like to move that it be received.
Second moved by Councillor Humphreys.
If I could just speak to it, I had a chance to speak with Mr. Simnauskas earlier, but part of my concern with this is that both myself as well as Councillor Maractus and Mayor Daw recently were at AMO and had a chance to walk the trade floor, and there was a number of companies, one in specific, that have a product out in the marketplace that is an enhancement to what we have now. Just preliminary conversations with them seem to indicate that the cost would be less than what we're advocating to repair this sign. So I kind of relate it to, would you pay X amount of dollars to fix your TV if you could buy a brand new one that was bigger and better? And so through you to Mr. Simnauskas, is there an opportunity to look at some of the vendors that are out there that have these newer signs and do a quick comparison or get a sense of what the costs are for it and then report back to council?
Mr. Simnauskas.
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair, that's something we can do. The pricing that we have in front of us those costs were procured through a competitive bid process. So what I can do is just go back to staff and review what it is that we're looking for and how it compares to the product, another product similar to what was presented at FCM, and see if there are any advantages to taking an alternate approach.
And for those who aren't familiar, I mean, essentially, we're talking about $25,000 to repair the sign, and we're all familiar with the capabilities of the current sign. But, you know, what I was able to see at FCM and AMO and so forth is that, you know, advancements are such that they're essentially, you know, full-color signage that are out there that are kind of modular. It can be the same size, if not bigger, and the implication was that the cost would be less than what we're paying to repair it. So I think it is worthwhile for us to just take a moment and look at what's out there. And again, if we can get a better sign that transmits better information and/or images, then I think we should take a look at it prior to approving the repair of our existing sign.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Perry. Councilor O'Neill.
I would want to make the suggestion that we refer this to staff as opposed to just receiving it, so that work can take place.
So are you putting an amendment on the floor?
Sure.
Okay, seconder? Second. Councilor Thompson. Any comments or questions to the amendment?
It's not an amendment, it's just a motion to it.
That's a motion, sorry. Okay. Motion carried. Yes, Renee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, so now that there is a motion to refer on the floor, that's what's up for debate. It's not to receive. It's not to receive, it's just to refer the report back to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. So, continue. Councilor Perry.
Just trying to speed things along. I agree with Councilor Thompson wholeheartedly. Send it back to staff, make sure that, you know, this is the most cost-effective manner. And if there is something that's bigger, better, and cheaper, we'll take a second opportunity to find it.
Thank you, Councilor Perry. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the comments from Councilor Thompson, and I think we should refer, if the ones that visited AMO, I know not all of us went, have that material to give it to staff so that they could at least understand what it is and they have a contact going forward. The value of allowing our council members to go to programs and workshops and conferences is very valuable, and we'll just see it, and it'll come out time and again, but I'm glad it was brought forward. I'm glad you went, and I'm glad you brought this back, because I think it's a great idea. We're trying to enhance our communication. And typically in digital world, what is brought out 10 years ago is more expensive than something that's a lot better.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, just I guess as a little update, I believe I did forward you the contact information, Mr. Simnoskis, in regards to the vendor that was at AMO. So Mr. Simnoskis does have that, so hopefully we will look into that, so that's great. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Move to item number 9. Councilor, will you pull that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move it to be received.
Okay, seconder? Councilor Humphreys. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you. I believe the report is talking about funding two main things. One is public access from the north, and I know we're not talking about that, but we're just receiving it, but it does sort of give us some sort of scope of what was going on. But I would like to ask you a request through you, Mr. Chair, on page 3 of the report, which is page 83, the request to allow public access from the north entrance, to give council an idea of how many people are in need of using this. In my mind, from the committee, was primarily the aquatics that need that entrance because that's the closest to the pool room. I don't think it would help the squash members, but I don't think they're the ones saying they have difficulty negotiating the front door. So how many classes are we talking about a week, and how many people people are sort of in need of that, just to give us some sort of idea of the scope.
Councillor, I'll allow Mr. Clerk to speak to that specific issue.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just a little concerned if we go into debate on that specific item at this time, because council at its August 25th meeting passed a motion directing that the debate on the on any rear door or north door access to the FLC be deferred until October. There was a specific council direction to defer consideration of that to October, following on a council motion from, I believe, May or June to discuss that specific matter.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd still like to know if that information could be provided if it's appropriate. I'm not saying I need it now, but if we are going to be dealing with it, I think it's for council when they're considering some of these numbers that they are given some of the metrics that are involved.
Thank you, Chair. Well, yeah, if staff, I guess, can make sure that they bring that forward when that report does come forward in October, and we discuss that.
So, I mean, I had another question about numbers, but I guess I can save that till October. All right. Councillor Gardner.
My point has already been considered.
Thank you. Councillor Hopers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the overall report. Thank you very much. It summarizes work to date. I just wanted to add for information only that we will be having an additional follow-up meeting, sort of close loop with the committee, and we may have ad hoc, casual meetings from here. But I just want to officially thank staff for all the hard work. It was incredible work to be done. There was a lot of hard work and communication between ourselves, staff and the public, and some of those challenges weren't easy. So I just want to thank staff for not giving up when the going was really tough at times. And thank you to residents that really cared a lot about the situation and wanted to give her their time and still do. And I just want to, again, just acknowledge that effort.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Do I have anyone else for the first time? Councillor Gardner. Oh, Councillor Thompson. And then Councillor Gardner.
Just quickly to echo the comments from Councillor Humphrey, I think it would be a nice gesture on us to recognize their efforts. I mean, I know typically when it comes to committees, we wait to the end of term and provide some certificate or some sort of recognition, but given that it's a shorter period of time, I'd like to leave it with staff to give some thought to providing some sort of recognition for them since the committee's, coming to its initial conclusion.
We have sent a letter to the participants. We did send a letter. We could also send a T-shirt saying I survived the AFLC.
Did we get one of those too? Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to ask a question of staff, probably Mr. Simonovskis or Mr. Downey. When there's something on one of these lists and it says pending approval, that probably means in some cases financial approval. But in the case that I'm looking at about moving a hairdryer and it says pending approval, could you clarify what that means exactly?
Mr. Simonovskis.
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just ask the council to point me to the page where that's references.
Thank you. Well, actually, I'm on page 20.
Page 20.
And it's number 30.
Oh, sorry, for me, just to clarify through Mr. Chair, that's in the minutes, the various minutes that are attached to the report?
So that's already been done?
Correct.
And pending approval means pending approval of staff?
At the time when those minutes were being prepared, it was either pending approval as per a decision that committee was to make, or if the cost was beyond what we could absorb at that point in time, pending approval to council. So there's only two items that have come forward requiring council approval. Everything else that the committee has asked for has been completed within the funding that we've identified within this project. The costs in this report are specific to those larger items. There are a number of smaller items that staff were able to address that had no cost component to them.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Simonovskis, through you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Simonovskis, the last time I was in that fitness change room, both hair dryers were still up high.
Yes, for me, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm aware of that. I've talked to staff about that. We don't have an in-house electrician to do the work. So that particular item has been pending our electrician to come out and do it. He's been with us, this contract's been with us for some time. He knows the urgency of this particular issue, and he's been told numerous times to be out there to complete the works. I believe it's pending very soon, if not in the next few days. That has been a challenge for us. We do not have an in-house electrician, so any work that requires electrical components must be done by a certified electrician. So that's one element we don't have direct control over.
Thank you, and just in case council thinks, I'm raising this issue in particular because we're talking about customer service. Both hair dryers are 6 feet high. It's very hard for a woman who's 5 feet to use that hair dryer, and I've seen them try. Thank you, Mr. Simonovskis.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. I'm just so we'll move to item number 12. Councilor Gardner, you take that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move it as is.
Second. Councilor Humphreys. Councilor Gardner.
Thank you very much to Mr. Marr for this report. My question is, what happens if there is a row house situation? We had a row house situation. Somebody came into the town hall, and I just happened to see them on the way out, and they were very upset. So this, it looks to me like this report about accessing neighboring property is really when you've got one attached home. What would happen if you had several attached homes and you had to go through more than one neighbor's property to access your backyard?
Mr. Marr.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the proposed bylaw would also cover that particular situation, unless there was some already existing easement that permitted a person in a townhouse to access over their neighbor's property in order to gain access onto their building or their backyard portion of their property. So this would cover off that case in case there wasn't an easement already in place.
Thank you. And the report is talking about repairs, primarily repairs. In this case, it was more a maintenance issue. So is there any leeway for people to go through their neighbors' backyards if it's not something like repairing a window or a wall?
Mr. Marr.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the section of the Municipal Act speaks to carrying out repairs or alterations to particular pieces of property. So within the confines of definition of repair, we can certainly build in maintenance to avoid having costly repair. Certainly prevention would fall into that definition.
So then if somebody wanted to move a piece of garden equipment to maintain their garden into a shed in their backyard, they wouldn't be able to use this particular bylaw to accomplish that?
Mr. Marr.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we would suggest instead that residents work together as neighbors to try and accommodate each other in those circumstances.
In this particular circumstance, that wasn't possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for getting this well on its way, and it has been an issue that's come up a few times, and there was one recent that was really troublesome for me. So I wanted to thank staff very much for getting this completed. It does take away any of the more escalated situations that could occur if someone is in a situation where they need to get something repaired and not being obliged by their neighbors. So I really appreciate getting this done. I think it'll stop a lot of the things that we've seen and cause a little bit of difficulties for us, but thank you.
Councilor Humphreys. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item number 15, Councillor Gardner, you put that one as well.
Thank you. Can't move as is, perhaps somebody else would like to.
Moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Tom. Councillor Gardner.
I just have a comment. I know that the Tigers have just been bought. I don't understand why we would, through Mr. Chair to Mr. Downey, I don't understand why we would relinquish the opportunity to have this money coming into the town coffers.
Councillor Gardner, are we speaking about the right item?
I'm not speaking. Sorry, I'm looking at number 14, which I guess I didn't pull.
Number 14 wasn't pulled.
That's true. Okay, then I'll have to ask that question offline. Could I, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Clerk? Could I ask that now?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, if it's a question or comment, certainly it would probably be best in order just under new business to raise it. The General Committee has already passed the recommendation on consent. Alternatively, of course, the matter will be before council next week, at which time it could be able to be discussed. But if it's a question or comment, that would be in order under new business.
Thank you. Will do.
Do you have anything for this item, Councillor? Any comments or questions to this specific item? Councillor Perry.
Since we're speaking to it now, thank you, Mr. Downey, for working on this. It's a nice revenue stream for the municipality.
Definitely. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Downey, is this the same yearly cost as the Strong Center? I think you had something with that as well.
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Chair, yes, it's exactly the same, $10,000 per year.
Councillor Tom. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item number 17, Mayor Dobb. That is yours.
I did pull it, Mr. Chair, because it does require direction.
Thank you. Okay, seconded. Councillor Humphries? Sorry.
It would require some direction.
You know what, I was moving real quick there.
And my direction would be that we receive it for information. That would be my motion.
Seconded. Councillor Perry?
I've got nothing to add.
Enough of that? Any other comments or questions? Councillor Humphries?
Mr. Chair, is there any, around the table, is there any other further support that we can give on this one? I mean, I would like to provide some sort of support. I think they've paved the way for a lot of us, and from our perspectives. So if there's anything we can contribute financially, I wouldn't know what that appropriate targets or something to help me out. But anyway, my position, I'd like to support if we can.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Perry?
I'll be brief. I don't believe the taxpayers of Aurora should be funding another municipality's legal challenge. It's not something I think is appropriate. So I'm definitely strongly not in favor of that.
Any other comments or questions? Can I just say something? I can't move in a minute. No? Okay. Can I get up to Joe? Can I pass the chair to Mayor Dobb? Yes, you can. Thank you, Mayor Dobb. Councillor Robertson. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. just think that, considering what the city of Hamilton has done, they're in essence fighting for the rights of all municipalities across the country. And I think considering FCM has jumped on board and looking to get intervener status, I think us throwing in or kicking in like a $2,000 to help out for our rights and for this fight, I think is worth it. I mean, we've done other things where we've used the council contingency for $2,000 to fund a party and other stuff. So I think, fighting for the rights of our right-of-ways and the municipality, I don't think $2,000 is a bad thing. So I'd like to put forward an amendment that we contribute $2,000 from our council contingency.
And Councilor Humphries, you're seconding that. And Councilor Humphries to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. Again, to Councilor Marcus's point, I do believe that they are taking the lead in charge in this situation. I've also noted over the last several weeks some serious concerns that our residents have been experiencing. The participation of our staff in trying to do whatever they can from a great customer service perspective and taking ownership of their issues. Some of us are getting personally involved with dealing with Canada Post as well to try to help streamline the installation of the community mailboxes. I just believe that the city of Hamilton has done a lot of work to raise the bar on this issue and raise the exposure on what's happening. $2,000 support for me just, again, demonstrates that, I appreciate, and I think our town appreciates what they're doing, and we will reap the benefits if things turn out positively for them. So I would support that very much.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Through to, I guess, Mr. Marr to start with. Prior to us discussing Canada Post and the process, we didn't have it on our books to collect any fees from them for any of these mailbox installations, but subsequently, now that we have the municipal agreement in place, they're actually getting a permit for each box. Is that correct?
Mr. Marr. To you, Mr. Chair, they've applied for the blanket permit, and it is the fee per box, as my previous report, so, yeah, yes, you're correct.
And so can you remind me, I guess, how many boxes and what the fee is, so that I get a sense of the total, I guess, revenue generated as a result of the changes that have been brought about?
As I recall the report, it was somewhere around $9,000, $9,500, is that sound right? Do you, Mr. Chair, I believe that Mr. Sandoz, Mr. Sandoz, $50 a box?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
And there's 170-something boxes.
So I guess if council did want to consider making a contribution, one argument could be that prior to the start of this, there was no revenue being generated as a result of Hamilton and the efforts of Councilor Maracus and this council and bringing about that municipal agreement. It did generate some revenue. And granted, a fair bit of that should go towards offsetting the costs, especially with staff being involved, but, is it unreasonable to say a portion of that go to help Hamilton in their efforts? If we're collecting $9,500 roughly, which we wouldn't have collected otherwise, I think it's not an unreasonable request.
Councilor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, just to Councilor Thompson's point, that revenue is raised from taxpayers that are, that federal taxpayers are the same as municipal taxpayers. So that the money that we're getting from the Crown Corporation comes from Canadians still. So it's not really new revenue, it's the same taxes.
Well, we're getting some lively debate now. Councilor, I will go to Councilor Abel, first time for Councilor Abel on the amendment. And then I've got Councilor Tom and, Councilor Maracus and Councilor Perry second time. Oh, I'm sorry, your first time, Councilor Perry. I'll go to Councilor Perry, Councilor Maracus. No, Councilor Perry, Councilor Abel.
Sorry, my problem is that if us as a municipality were collecting something from an organization, whomever the organization is, effectively we would be collecting taxes to be giving to a different municipality. Doesn't sit well with me
at all. You know, if the mayor and the council in Hamilton weren't prepared to, you know, move forward on this, understanding that they were going to be the holders of the cost, you know, the full cost, maybe they shouldn't have gone through with it. If they're just asking for a handout, I don't see why it's becoming of us that we would have to be doing that. I think it's, if a different organization wants to be jumping in as intervener status, you know, and they want to be putting in funding, that's fine. But I don't see the point of why we would as a municipality. That doesn't make sense to me. If we want to get involved, let's get involved in the case. But again, that's not something I'm interested in. If Hamilton is going to go forward with this, let them by all means go forward with this. It doesn't mean that we should be funding them through our taxpayers to do so. Because regardless of us funding them or not, I would imagine that they're going to be paying for it. So there is no benefit to our residents for us to be chipping in a few, a couple $1,000. I just don't see it. So why would we be engaging in something where there is no benefit to our taxpayers?
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Abel.
Thank you. I think if I recall, when we first discussed jumping in with a bylaw, it was brought to my attention, if I'm not mistaken, that we were asking for more than $50, which is what Canada Post was going to give for each permit. We said that the cost was going to be greater for the municipality, considering that we would have to do the upkeep and grading, and the $50 was not going to cover that at all. So, through you, Mr. Chair, could I ask, was that the case that originally there was a $50 permit, or $50 was being offered for each mailbox?
Mr. Mars, I go to you, or? Through Mr. Mayor, I'll take my best shot at that. Canada Post initially offered us nothing, and then they came back after discussions and with council's pressure to offer us the $50 per box. So that's how that came about. Initially, they weren't willing to pay anything at all, nor were they going to apply for a permit, but through discussions, that position changed. Sir?
So I misremembered. But to me, the $50 doesn't adequately cover the cost to the municipality and ongoing cost. It covers the paperwork and it allows them to move forward. The other matter that is by the time this is all settled, all the mailboxes will be installed in Aurora. They're being installed right now. We're ahead of the 5-year plan. I guess we were one of the first ones chosen, or however it came about, but those will be completed before I think that court case is being done, and that was something that Hamilton decided. I'm sort of with Councillor Perry, and I said at the time I would support creating the bylaw, and I thought the bylaw was going to look for $200, but I was in support of that, but I was not going to support any legal challenge, and I made that clear at that time. And I don't see why we would be paying. I don't think it's a good use of our taxpayers' money to start funding legal battles that other municipalities have initiated without consulting us. I mean, we were never asked, would you be involved, would you like to do this, we're doing this for you. We did take a stand, and I appreciate that we did do that, because I've seen in Montreal the mayor with a jackhammer taking up one of the platforms. But with all the costs and all the things that we've done, this sort of goes backwards against what we're doing. So I'm not going to support any funding of any legal challenges that other municipalities have initiated.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm of the motto of the U.S. Marines, you know, no man left behind. And, you know, when you fight together as people or municipalities, it's always a nice gesture to assist in any capacity. I do feel that way from a collegial and emotional perspective, but in principle, and what goes on in other industries and other sectors is that usually the self-regulatory body or an industry body will act as a supporter, will funnel all the necessary funds to the stakeholder of that body. I think I will stick to the principles in this situation, and although I totally understand the recommendation or to assist Hamilton, but just in principle, I believe that we should not be contributing to their cause. I'm certainly appreciative, but I think, in principle, I think FCM should be responsible for something like this, and if there's no fund to support individual municipalities, then perhaps that's something that the FCM should be considering in the future. Thank you.
Councilor Ackes for a second time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess fighting for our rights isn't that important. If it wasn't for the city of Hamilton, we wouldn't have what we have today as far as dealing with Canada Post. We wouldn't have them applying for the permits. We wouldn't have the $50. We wouldn't have proper consultation happening between our residents and with our town staff. So I think kicking in $2,000, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. We've done it for other things. And as far as taking it from one taxpayer and just putting it to another, my understanding from dealing with Canada Post and speaking to them, they are not federally funded. So the money isn't coming from taxpayers, the $50 fee. Considering they made a $192 million profit, the money's not coming from the taxpayer's pocket. With that being said, I guess I'll put a motion to call the question.
Well,
I'll put a motion to call the question. If I get a seconder.
well,
There's no debate.
well, I actually wanted to say something if I can. Mr. Clerk, you're not going to let me say anything?
Mayor?
Yes, you may, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion to call a question, subject to the chair's confirmation, has been moved and seconded, and so it must immediately be put to a vote. No debate on that subject.
Motion to call the question.
Mr. Mayor, who's the chair? Because I never heard you say that Councillor Humphreys was seconding that.
So, she did second it.
She did, and you acknowledge that?
I did.
Okay.
Motion to call the question. All in favor? It's not debatable. All in favor of calling the question? Contrary. I'm sorry. Hands high so we can see them, please. Yeah, the motion, it's a motion to call the question. We're not calling the question, it's a motion to call the question.
It's a motion to call the vote.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Oh, Councillor Kim says simply it's a motion, we're going to call the question. So it's a procedural. So the motion on the floor is to call the question. All in favor of the motion? Hands high. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion passes. All in favor of the amendment as presented? Contrary. The amendment fails. Councillor? I'll have the chair back to you. Oh, want me to try to hear? Well, back to the motion as amended? Yeah, you moved out of this end of the table, you lose perspective. Well, just perspective if we could talk to.
So I got it back?
I can pass the chair back to you if you wish.
Perfect. Sounds good. Any comments or questions on the original motion to be received? Seeing none, so I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 18. Councilor Gardner, you pulled that one.
Thank you, I'll move it as is, and I'd like to refer to page...
Second it. Councillor Humphries?
Thank you. I'd like to refer to page 3, which is also about the Canada Post community mailboxes. The Accessibility Advisory Committee had some very good suggestions as to how Canada Post could make these more accessible. And I know there was a rep from Canada Post at the meeting, so perhaps, did they agree to follow through on these recommendations?
Councillor Humphries, if you could speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Maracus was at the meeting as well. Actually, that evening, Canada Post representatives were very accommodating and actually adhere to strict compliancy for accessibility standards, and every mailbox, a community mailbox, had that consideration around it. What was exceptionally great that evening is the work being done by our staff. Chris Catania and Ivy were very helpful and had absolutely taken full accountability to help any issues that come up at all from residents with any accessibility concerns, and they have been addressed quickly, and they're taking full accountability of that process. So absolutely great job done by staff. And again, Canada Post takes that issue of any accessibility challenges very, very seriously. I don't know if staff has any comments this evening on any challenges that you may have been aware of, but I know from my interface with them, I've heard of no displeasure in that area.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you for that. And as a follow-up, so for example, with respect to curb cuts, it says the committee recommended the curb cuts must be level and not sloped upwards. So is that something that Canada Post is actually going to be doing, or is that something that the town will be doing through, I guess, to Mr. Simonovskis?
Mr. Simonovskis?
That's true, Mr. Chair. All the work will be done by Canada Post, so there's nothing that our staff are actually doing other than reviewing the locations and confirming that those locations are suitable. So it will be upon Canada Post's shoulders to do that properly.
Thank you. So just for clarification, the representatives from Canada Post heard all of these, or read all of these considerations, and said that they were going to follow through on them?
Councillor Humphries?
Through Mr. Chair, they did absolutely say they would follow through, and if there were any concerns at all, they would work with the town to go back and resolve the issues. So there's no, that was a communication that evening, that there would be no roadblocks or any reason why they would not work very, very closely with the town with any concerns that residents may bring up that are not, from an accessibility perspective and standards, not compliant. So absolutely, if something's been done, they have no problem going back to resolve those issues.
Thank you. May I suggest then that this stay on the committee's pending list, and that the committee goes back and checks that they actually have followed through on this? Thanks.
You'll take care of that, right, Councillor Humphries?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, new business. We're almost there, folks. Councillor Perry.
Something I probably should have asked beforehand. I'm out of town at SCM. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, so I don't think I'll get the opportunity to get this done. So I'm asking now, is there anything in the municipal act that would prevent a municipality from sponsoring refugees? It's a shame what's going around, going on around the world, and is there an opportunity for, the municipality to get involved? If we could sponsor one, invite some faith groups to see if they'd be able to sponsor another, private citizens.
I'll put forward a motion, in due course, but I just want to know if that's something that we are allowed to do as a municipality.
Mr. Meyer, I'll throw it to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I honestly don't know for sure. I understand the City of Toronto through Mayor John Tory has suggested that they are looking into the matter and that he personally wants to. I don't know whether or not Aurora could. I'm happy to look into it and find out for sure whether or not that is the case.
If you could send an email to council prior to, I guess, 4 p.m. Thursday. I think you've gotten the drift I'm looking for, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to mention that Monica Bruning, the business manager for the Aurora Public Library, is retiring after 27 years, and there will be a retirement party this Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. in the Magnum Room. So, if anyone who's available can wish her well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind council and staff and members of the public of the celebration of the Queen's Reign, which is tomorrow at 2 p.m., followed by tea at the Aurora Senior Centre at 3, and a happy hour at the Royal Canadian Legion at 4. Hope everyone can make it out. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you. I wish I could be there tomorrow, but I'll do my best to sneak out of work. But
You can sneak out.
I think I can.
Yes.
Hopefully my boss isn't listening. Thanks. Just a couple of things. I wanted to thank councillors, and I don't think we've mentioned this, but there was a community corn roast at the farmers market. Oh, I already said thank you, didn't I? I think I might have. I just want to thank councillors for being there. This past farmers market, there was recognition for Nigel Keane and Steve Granger. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Abel, who came out and on behalf of Mayor Daw, presented certificates of their contribution towards creating and being very, very involved in the farmers market and launching that great market that we get to enjoy every weekend. So special thanks to them, and thanks to again, Councillor Abel for doing that on the weekend. You're going to be hearing from me a little bit week after week on a fundraiser that I'll be working on. It's for Easter Seals, and it's called Dancing with the Stars. So anyway, I'm going to need your help to raise funds for a fantastic, worthy cause. The event's going to be on October the 1st at the Manor. Lots of people are involved that you are going to recognize. Think of me first before them, and only teasing, but if you could, it's going to be a great, great cause. You'll see more about it. I'll send some information out, and for the general public to contribute as well. Come and enjoy. It's going to be a great, great event. I hear Barry has done it for 4 years in a row and really done a great job, so we'll see how Aurora can show them up. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Abel?
No news, but I just wanted to let Councillor Humphreys know that there are some great participants in that Easter Seals, and I was approached right away. I would love to support you, but I was asked before I even knew you were in there. So there's former Councillor Hinder, there's yourself, and then there's some people from Newmarket as well. It looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, it's going to be great, and I can hardly wait to see you on the dance floor.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Councillor Thompson?
Just briefly, I know the town plans to send out some more information in the coming days, but next Tuesday, there's going to be a community launch event at the Leisure Complex with regards to the sports plan and the Parks and Rec master plan from 6 to 8. And so I hope members of council have a chance to come and attend it prior to council next Tuesday. And I look forward to seeing the development of the plan and other community sports groups coming out and attending it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. I'm going back to item number 14, which has to do with the Ring Board advertising money. There is an existing agreement with the Tigers, and that agreement says 20% of the Ring Board revenue should come to the town. I understand that they sell it as, or they whatever they do with it is part of a sponsorship package, and there's in-kind services, but, those things do generate money for the Tigers, and we have an agreement with them. So, I'm sorry, I will just say on record that I think if we have an agreement in place, then that agreement should be upheld.
Thank you, Councilor
And we do
Gardner.
have a council meeting next week where I will not be able to attend, so maybe somebody will take up that line of thinking.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Gardner. Mayor Dahl.
I'm surprised no one's mentioned Woodfest yet.
Well, we were saving it for you. You guys have to say something.
You're quick tonight. I'm impressed. So Woodfest is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have Chill Rack playing on Friday night with a special MC who will be introduced that night. We have the Spoons on Saturday night and the Mid Tasting Contest on Sunday. So I encourage, and it's wristbands, so you do have to get a wristband for Friday night and Saturday night for the bands.
Are you one of the judges? I'm just curious.
In the rib eating contest? Yes. And I get to take the leftovers home to my daughter who loves them.
Perfect.
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah. The
Hoedown Showdown's on Sunday, correct? Yep, the Hoedown Showdown's on Sunday. There's also the opening at Drummers Hangout, which is a new drum store in town. It's kind of cool.
I saw that. It's pretty cool, yeah.
And all sorts of stuff going on this weekend. It's going to be very busy.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have one item I want to clarify. There's been, Canada Post with their communication is very terrible, so I just would like to ask a question of Mr. Simonoskis. Some of the residents are finding that sites that have been decided on and have been moved, the contractors are actually going and have cut the curbs in the sites that were moved. So we're curious to who will be rebuilding those curbs and fixing the sod and everything.
So to you, Mr. Chair, Canada Post will be doing any repairs. If the locations were relocated on their request and we approve those new locations, they'll have to fix the damages that they've created.
Thank you. And that's it. Sure, Councilor Abel, one more.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Simonoskis, we're talking about boulevards. I had approached you last week sometime. In our quadrant, by Aurora Heights and Bathurst, there's a lot of cabling going on, and a lot of boulevards, grass has been dug up, and I had asked you if that was going to be repaired back to its original state. Did you have any time, or should we wait?
Mr. Simonoskis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I can respond to that. It is the contractor's responsibility. We are chasing the contractor to do that work. If we find that they don't fulfill that obligation before much later into this fall season, then I'll make sure that at least our staff do some repairs so there's nothing unsafe left for the winter. But it should be the contractor who does any work that happens in our boulevards by a contractor should be repaired by that contractor.
And just as a follow-up, I'll just say that it is safe. They have leveled it, but they've leveled it with gravel, and all that's growing is weeds. They should replace the sod back to where it was on the town boulevards, to its original state, and that has not taken place. So it's a bit of an eyesore, and I'm constantly getting my neighbors going, is this what we get? So I'd like to know that we have contacted them and let them know that they're leaving a trail of unsatisfactory potholes, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Dahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Mr. Simonoskis' point, I was also in touch with Power Stream because I had people contacting me as well. Neighbors walking by saying, when the heck is this going to be done? And so Power Stream, through their subcontractor Transpower, I think, is rehabbing those areas. A little bit more slowly, perhaps, than we might like, but they are rehabbing it. I will connect with Mr. Simonoskis tomorrow just to make sure that it's being followed up with the right people.
Councilor Abel?
The rehab that I've seen so far is some very poor soil with some seed put on it. And the seed hasn't taken, and it's in my mind, a blight, and it's not satisfactory. So if that's the rehab, I would have an issue with that.
I would just throw in, I agree with Councilor Abel, I think they should be putting out sod, not seed, so, yeah. Take care of the problem before it gets worse, so.
Water it every day.
Definitely. So we're done with new business. Move to closed session. We have 3 items, so may I have a motion to resolve into closed session following adjournment? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kim. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We will not be reporting out. So if I can get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Perry. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Should I do one of these? Yeah, you never know. Good job, Chair. Thanks, buddy. Well, that's because